Hi, I'm Pat Mangan, Director of Governance Education at NRECA. Welcome to Governance Talk. My guest today is Susan Olander. Susan, you are the Vice President and General Counsel at Federated Rural Electric Insurance Exchange. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure, Pat.
Got a very special topic I want to talk with you about today, and that's how to approach the director with diminished ability. Very sensitive topic, and one that many boards have had to face, and it's certainly a delicate topic. So thanks for talking about it with me.
It is a delicate and it's a sensitive topic, and no one really wants to be in the position of talking about it. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, there are times we have to. Mm-hmm. And if you are approaching that situation, mm-hmm. couple of things I like to have people keep in mind. Mm-hmm. First, how are you judging whether this person has diminished ability?
Okay.
So go back and look at not just the job description of a director, which is in your bylaws, mm-hmm. but what do we as a director need to be able to do? We need to be able to attend the board meeting. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to ask questions, to review the board book, to understand the board book, mm-hmm. to think strategically. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to represent the membership effectively. We need to be able to participate mm-hmm. in the board meeting. Those are kind of the things that will help you as a chair or as a board say, we think we're seeing some diminished ability here.
Okay.
But when you look beyond that, how do you handle it?
Right.
How do you handle it?
Do you talk to the director? Do you talk to the spouse? What's your first step there?
Oh, I think the first step is to think about, if it were me, mm-hmm. how would I want somebody to approach me? Mm-hmm. And if I'm the chair and I've got the responsibility for approaching someone, because I think it should be done one-on-one, it should be done privately, and it should be done confidentially.
Okay.
I think as the board chair, I should have made objective observations.
Okay.
And I can point to specific incidences that say, this is where I'm noticing, mm-hmm. or the board is noticing. You can make it inclusive, because board members may have given you information that they've mm-hmm. noticed. Mm-hmm. Where I'm noticing that you are not on top of your game. But before you get to that, when you go into the meeting, frame it. This is someone you've worked with for years. Mm-hmm. Someone who has been a tremendous director for years. Mm-hmm. Has contributed every day in every board meeting until recently. So go back, make a little list of all their accomplishments and all their achievements, so you can remind them that yes, you have worth. You mm-hmm. were a great director. Unfortunately, here's what we're noticing now. Mm-hmm. And be specific.
Okay. Be
objective. Don't rely on what somebody told you in the grocery store or at church mm-hmm. or at the football game. Mm-hmm. Your knowledge, your observations. You're dealing with two different types, potentially, of diminished ability. You can have physical. Mm-hmm. That, quite frankly, is the easier one to overcome.
It's observable.
It's observable, and it may be that you can fix that.
Okay.
Maybe you can provide different access to the board meeting. Maybe the director just needs to go get a hearing aid.
Sure.
Maybe the director has a medication need. Mm-hmm. Maybe the director needs to take a break in the middle of the board meeting to go get a little snack mm-hmm. to keep their energy level up.
Okay.
Physical can be easier in some respects to deal with.
Okay.
Mental diminished ability is a lot tougher to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's where you need to talk to the director about, here's what has been observed.
Very good. Specifics.
Specifics. Yes. When you're talking about specifics,
yes.
generally we're talking about cognitive decline.
Okay.
So what are we seeing with that cognitive decline? Disorientation, paranoia, hallucination, forgetfulness, mm-hmm. wandering, inattention, mm-hmm. not recognizing fellow directors, not recognizing that a motion was taken and passed 30 minutes ago. and that item on the agenda has already been covered.
Yeah.
And pointing that out to a director may help that director say, in an ideal world,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm just not what I was 5 years ago. I'm not what I was 12 months ago. I've got an issue going on. If that's the best of all possible worlds, and if that's what happens, then you as the board chair can say, you know, Joe, I appreciate you recognizing that. Let's figure out how we can make your retirement a celebration.
Very good.
Let's figure out how much longer, a couple of months maybe, you're on the board, and then we'll have a retirement ceremony for you. If you're up for re-election in 4 months, we'll simply say you've decided not to run again, and we'll do the retirement then. You are a valued member of this community and a valued member of this board. And we're going to make sure that you retire appropriately. That's great if it works that way. It doesn't always work that way.
Say Joe is resistant. He doesn't agree with you. Thinks you're out of line for bringing it up. Now what?
Well, 2 ways to approach that. The first is more the legal side. And if you have the ability under state law, hopefully you've already put a provision in your bylaws that says if a director is physically or mentally incapable of carrying out the duties of a director, they can be removed by a supermajority vote of the board.
Okay.
I don't know how many cooperatives have that. It's common in corporations. I don't know how many rural electric cooperatives have that.
But it would be a provision, again, in the bylaws.
In the bylaws.
That talks about removal.
Correct.
Under certain circumstances, do you define or?
You would have to have independent medical verification that this person is no longer capable of carrying out their duties.
Okay.
And you would have to have that supermajority vote, I think, to make it fair. 2/3, 75%, whatever the appropriate standard is. You would also probably, and this is where your lawyer is going to get involved, you might have to have that provision approved by the membership.
Okay.
Now, you can think of good circumstances where this would happen. Relatively good. That's probably not the right way to phrase it, but a director unfortunately falls into a coma. You don't have the right, if you don't have this in your bylaws, to remove that director. That director's in a coma. They can't resign.
They can't resign. Okay.
And it could be you've got another 2 or 3 years where they're serving. And yet they're not.
The board is not
capable.
empowered to take any action there,
No.
which is really
Usually
a bad
not.
position to be in.
So that's one, that would be one, not a good reason for the individual director, but a good reason for the board to have this provision in the bylaws. Membership might not approve it. Your attorney may say, no, state law doesn't allow you to do that. So you have that director who says, I'm not resigning. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
This is even more delicate because on the surface, there's absolutely nothing you can do. If the director is a danger to himself or to others, maybe you can limit travel.
I see.
You know, you don't want a director going to a regional or a national meeting where they're going to
Okay.
get lost.
Sure.
Lost at an airport, lost walking around, something like that. You don't want them driving, perhaps, again, because they can get lost. So you might be able to restrict that.
Okay.
You might consider talking to the spouse.
Okay. What does that look like? Is that a one-on-one? Do you
That's a
recommend?
one-on-one. That's a confidential. I think you do that after you've talked to the director.
And that's typically the chair, I would imagine,
Yes.
that has that conversation. Okay.
And it's, here's what we're observing. I've had this conversation with your husband or your wife. They're denying it.
Yeah.
What can we do to help? How can we help you? The spouse may deny it too. Say, you're picking on my spouse.
I see.
This isn't right. And at that point, there's really nothing else you can do.
Okay.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, certainly. I'm just wondering, do you bring the attorney in at some point or not here? Does that help?
It's not really at that point something the attorney is not a fellow director.
Mm-hmm.
So the attorney has no more power than the board chair.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, unless you're looking for a legal solution,
Mm-hmm.
which has nothing to do with talking to the director with the diminished ability,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the attorney addressing that director is of any benefit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that escalates it, and you lose the element of sensitivity and personal concern and personal care. Just remember, it's an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. You are telling someone, particularly with mental diminished ability, you are telling someone they're not contributing anymore, they can't do it. And that's a tough lesson for someone to hear.
Well, thanks for providing that guidance, Susan. Really appreciate you being here today.
My pleasure, Pat.